It was one of those blistering summer afternoons where the air feels heavy and even the asphalt seems to shimmer. I just finished my grocery run and was trudging through the parking lot toward my car, a dusty, decade-old Toyota Corolla that had more miles than I cared to admit. Now, I've never been the kind of person to care much about appearances when it comes to vehicles. My Corolla may have been old, but it ran like a champ, and it had gotten me through everything from cross-country road trips to icy winter commutes. Still, I couldn't help but notice the way people sometimes looked at it, especially those who thought their status was tied to their set of wheels. That's when I saw her, leaning casually against a gleaming white BMW X5, sunglasses perched high on her forehead, manicured nails capping impatiently against her phone. Her whole posture screamed, "I own this parking lot." She had the kind of perfectly styled hair that didn't move in the wind and an outfit that looked like it came straight from a luxury boutique catalog. I probably would have walked right past her without a second thought if she hadn't looked up at me, glanced at my Corolla, and laughed. Not just a chuckle, not just a smirk, a full, open-mouthed, dismissive laugh. "Wow, I didn't know they still made those things," she said loudly enough for me to hear as I opened my trunk. I felt my jaw tighten. I could have ignored her, should have ignored her, but there was something in her tone that grated on me, like my worth was written all over my car in bold, lowercase letters. "It's reliable," I said simply, tossing my grocery bags into the trunk. She tilted her head and grinned in that way some people do when they think they're humoring you. "Reliable? That thing looks like it's one speed bump away from the scrapyard." I forced a polite smile. "Well, it's been paid off for years, and it still gets me from point A to point B. That's all I need." Her laugh was sharper this time, like she'd been waiting for an excuse to keep going. Sure, I guess some people are okay settling for that." She waved a dismissive hand at my car as if it were a dirty dish she didn't want to touch. I closed my trunk with a satisfying thunk and turned to face her. "And I guess some people are okay making their car payments the size of a mortgage." Her smile faltered just for a second. Then she slid her sunglasses back down and smirked. "When you can afford it, it's called living well. But hey, good for you. Keep doing whatever it is you're doing." She climbed into our BMW and revved the engine, the hum of German engineering filling the air. I shook my head, slid into my Corolla, and told myself to let it go. I really thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. I pulled out of the lot first, the BMW following close behind me. It wasn't long before we hit the stoplight at the edge of the shopping center. I noticed her in my rearview mirror, sunglasses on, one hand holding her phone as she talked animatedly, clearly paying more attention to her conversation than the road. The light turned green. I eased forward. She didn't. A horn blared behind her, and she finally jerked forward, speeding past me as soon as she got the chance. I caught a quick glimpse of her giving me that same smirk through her tinted window as she zipped ahead. Whatever, I thought. Let her enjoy her little victory. But a mile down the road, karma decided to make an appearance. Up ahead, the BMW's brake lights flashed, then stayed solid. The right turn signal flickered weakly before dying altogether. The sleek white SUV slowed to a crawl, then stopped completely on the shoulder. I slowed as I passed, catching sight of her through the rolled-down driver's side window. She was frantically tapping her dashboard, muttering something into her phone. Even from a distance, I could hear the frustration in her voice. A plume of light gray smoke began to seep from under her hood. I pulled over a few yards ahead, mostly out of instinct. By the time I walked back to her car, she was out on the pavement, pacing with her phone still pressed to her ear. The smugness was gone, replaced by panic. "Yes, I need a tow truck now. No, I don't know what's wrong. The thing just..." She caught sight of me and stopped mid-sentence. I raised an eyebrow. "Need some help?" Her jaw tightened. "No, I've got it handled." "Looks like it's overheating," I said, glancing at the thin stream of steam curling from her hood. Might want to shut the engine off before you cause more damage." "I know what I'm doing," she snapped. Then, after a pause, it's never done this before." I shrugged. Even the most expensive cars break down, especially if you treat them like status symbols instead of machines. Her face flushed, and for a moment I thought she was going to snap back, but instead she turned away, muttering something under her breath. I walked back toward my Corolla, but not before catching one last glimpse of her, standing there in her designer shoes next to her immobile BMW, glaring at the steam like it had personally betrayed her. When I started my car, the engine purred the life without a hesitation. As I drove away, I couldn't help but think, sometimes karma doesn't take years. Sometimes it just takes 15 minutes. I'd barely gone a block when my conscience got the better of me. Maybe it was the summer heat, maybe it was the memory of her smug laughter still buzzing in my ears, but I turned my car around. When I pulled up behind her BMW again, she was standing with the hood open now, staring down at the engine like it was written in another language. Her phone was pressed to her ear again, her voice sharper than before. "I told you I needed this fixed yesterday. I have a hair appointment in 20 minutes. She hung up and spotted me. "What now? Come back for another jab at my expense?" "Actually," I said, leaning against my Corolla, "I came back to make sure you weren't stranded without water. This feat can knock you out quick." I held up a spare bottle from my grocery bag. She looked at it like it might bite her. "I'm fine." "You don't look fine," I said. "Your car's steaming, you're baking in the sun, and I'm guessing that tow truck isn't going to show up for at least an hour." She hesitated. Her pride was fighting a losing battle against the sweat beading on her forehead. Finally, she took the bottle without a word. I could have left it at that, but something told me the lesson wouldn't sink in unless I twisted the knife, just a little. You know, my Corolla's old, sure, but I maintain it. Regular oil changes, coolant flushes, checking belts. That's why it's still running. Her glare could cut glass. "Are you implying I don't take care of my car?" I smiled faintly. "I'm implying that laughing at someone else's ride might not be worth it when yours leaves you standing on the shoulder in 90-degree weather." She opened her mouth to respond, then stopped when her car gave a loud clunk. Something under the hood hissed like an angry snake, and more smoke billowed upward. She slammed the hood shut, muttering something I couldn't hear. "Good luck with the tow," I said, heading back to my Corolla. She didn't thank me for the water, but as I pulled away, I caught her watching me in my rearview mirror, expression unreadable, sunglasses back on, pride dented. My Corolla carried me home without a hiccup. The next morning, I was running late for work and decided to take the back route through town to avoid the morning rush. As I turned onto Main Street, I spotted a commotion up ahead. Cars honking, drivers leaning out of their windows, gesturing angrily. And there she was. Same white BMW, hazard lights flashing, stopped dead in the middle of the lane. She was outside the car, pacing back and forth in those same designer shoes, yelling into her phone. "I told you I needed this fixed yesterday. I have a hair appointment in 20 minutes. Traffic was stacking up behind her. A delivery truck driver leaned out of his window. "Lady, move it to the curb." "I can't," she snapped. "It won't even start." Another driver shouted, "Then push it. You're blocking the whole street." She whirled around and glared. "Do I look like I push cars?" I couldn't help it. I pulled into a parking space across the street and watched. Within minutes, a patrol car rolled up. Officer Ramirez stepped out, sunglasses on, looking like he'd already had enough of the day. "Ma'am, you need to get your vehicle out of the road." She launched into a tirade about how it wasn't her fault, about mechanics these days and cheap imported parts, which made no sense for a German luxury SUV, and about how she was the real victim here. Ramirez didn't budge. "Either we push it or I call a tow. Those are your options." She folded her arms. "I'm not pushing anything." "Then tow it is." he said, turning back to his cruiser. That's when she spotted me across the street. Her eyes narrowed, recognition sparking like a lit fuse. She shouted over the traffic noise, "This is your fault!" Heads turned. People started whispering. And then she started crossing the street toward me, leaving your BMW completely unattended in the middle of Main Street. She stomped across the street, weaving between honking cars, pointing at me like she just found the villain in her personal soap opera. "You!" she yelled. "You jinxed me with that piece of junk you call a car!" I blinked. "You think my Corolla broke your BMW?" "Yes!" she spat. "Ever since I laughed at it, mine hasn't worked right. You probably," she dropped her voice into a conspiratorial hiss, "did something to it." Across the street, Officer Ramirez raised his voice.